Can you guys hear me now? I think that good catch. Thank you. My streaming software was just allowing me to just talk to myself for a few minutes. So um, that's fun. Anyway, um, even the technology for the streaming is misbehaving itself. So we're here now. Um, if you guys are good at lip reading, you'll basically what I have said so far is that the volume has been incredibly low, and we are really grinding up here into this 30,000 level. We've been looking at this, or I've been looking at this 3065 as a breakout level for a long time. I actually thought that the CPI data candle might be able to get high enough to get through there, and we did not. And we did take out the high of the data drop candle, which I always lean towards being bullish. But the the volatility is definitely picking up here. I would love to see some higher volume. I would love to see some wider rotations. That's typical on CPI day, but the last couple days have been really, really slow, really, really tight range. Yesterday was an atrocious session. I scalped something at the very, very end of the session, and it was hard to even get 15 or 20 points. So that is something to just keep in mind, that sometimes when the market gets into this very like grind type price action, sometimes it needs like an event like CPI to kind of get it moving, and other times it can drift. Even with CPI, it can drift back into this like really bad slow rotation chop fest. So I'm on watch to see what the volatility is going to be like. As I've talked about on previous streams, in the last couple times, I'm trading an eval from Lucid. I'm trying to work on sizing up. So you'll see me trade. I have it set to 3 contracts right now, which is what I've been trading on this $50,000 eval. But if the volatility starts to look really high, which so far it does not to me, then, but if it shoots up, like if we start to see really big rotations here, like if we're able to get to the, say, the low of the data candle before the opening range is set, I might switch over to just doing 2, just because I think that the number of points that I'll be able to get will be relative to it, and I'm not just gonna blindly trade 3 micros just because I'll probably need to use a wider stop if volatility picks up. But so far we aren't seeing that. There's a buy and balance that just showed up here at 36. That's that 203 that you see on my screen right here. There's a absorption level here. Some sellers getting absorbed in this area here, but now we're sitting below it. You saw some exhaustion here at the top. That's that little orange marker, which is just the buy move finally cooling off, and then the drop right at the open. So this is very much a wait and see type session for me. CPI is actually not one of my favorite days to trade. Typically, they're really, really whippy, and I do hope that we get some increase in volume and volatility, but CPI can be one of those like what I might classify as bad volatility sometimes. And what I would mean by bad volatility is that I want nice, big, clean rotations. Like I do want the market to move around enough for me to be able to scalp. But sometimes data candles, particularly CPI, can be very whippy. So they can like just within like a 15 to 20 point range, which is kind of like usually my stop. You sometimes just get like really large participants that are just like market ordering in one direction or another, kind of like that move that it just did right there, where if we zoom in and you kind of got like a little pop from 75 to 97. So that's like a 20-point move that then rolled back over like 50 points down. So just head on a swivel. If you've never traded CPI before, I would recommend either watching sim trade or at least size down. I'm probably going to I'm going to actually go ahead and size down after I saw that move there. So we'll trade 2 micros today. I do like that. I don't typically actually get to size down because I'm usually trading 1 micro. So I'm usually just like, well, I'm going to use a slightly larger stop, or I'm going to choose not to trade today. Those are kind of the options. So I wouldn't classify any of this as like, I'm not really looking for the sell side unless we take out the bottom of the data candle. So if we take out the bottom of the data candle, I'll probably look for some kind of like rebid up to the mid and then look for a rollover. My target would be near the overnight lows down to this kind of like high volume node here at the bottom at 660. Would also be just kind of like falling back into range for the week. So, but until then, I'm going to let buyers, as long as they're above the midline and above the bottom of the data drop candle, I'm going to give um, I'm going to give buyers the edge and be looking for places to get long if they develop. But that's where we're at today. I was saying in chat this morning in the Discord that, this type of really low volume price action, as my data feed attempts to freeze here, we'll see if that pops up and give it just a second, yeah, to unchoke itself. Um, Also, something very typical for CPI for data feeds to have issues as well. So, just one of those days that I've had some, I think I've probably had more bad trading sessions on CPI days than I've had good trading sessions on CPI days. So that's my hesitance. But what I was saying in the Discord this morning is that this type of really low volume behavior from the NASDAQ is typical of, I think, more like early summer. So like July 4th, mid July. It can bleed into August, but typically this is when we start to like kind of ramp volume back up. We get out of the summer lull, people are back, any type of summer vacations are over, and we start to get into fall. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty happening. The market may also be in kind of a holding pattern until the U.S. midterms are over, just kind of waiting for more direction. And there's a lot of uncertainty in the AI space as well, as I think we've kind of like moved from a very like hyped type of AI, uh, like in the last like year or two, it's been like, oh my gosh, AI is going to change the face of the planet and it's going to be this huge moneymaker. And all these tech companies have rallied, and, all the different hardware pieces and companies of that, like Nvidia and Seagate and SanDisk, and all of these companies have really like popped. But now I think we're getting into the meat where the like rubber meets the road, where we've had all these promises about how AI is going to like change everything and everybody's going to use it and it's going to be this tech revolution. And it very well might be, but what tech companies are having to do now is spend an inordinate amount of money to sort of like make these promises come to life. And so I think this is like where the market is like in this pause period between like, well, we had all this hype, we got it all the way up here, and now we're having to spend a bunch of money, and now it might take a really long time to get the infrastructure in place for this revolution, if it's going to happen, to actually take place. And so I think that's kind of like some of the froth is like kind of coming out of some of these names. Like, it doesn't mean we're just going to like roll over and, the bubble, quote unquote, is going to pop and, everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket. But I do think that the market's now looking for more tangible evidence that all of this spend, like trillions and trillions of dollars of spend coming from the Microsofts and the Googles, is really going to like pay off in the long run. And until the market gets evidence, until they get an earnings report, until some of this spend, I think, results in higher earnings, I don't know that the market is going to treat it the same way that it's treated AI stuff for the last, year or two. I think the easy part of the AI trade is kind of over in my particular mind. It doesn't mean that there's not a lot more upside. I just think that, we're looking for more evidence and less hype now. So coming up to the bottom of this absorption zone here, I'm actually just going to pop up to see how it trades here. Not looking to take a trade, but I also want to see how the depth of market is moving. So not trading super fast, but it is trading really jumpy. You'll notice that like price comes back into my window here. Let me scroll down. Or it's just going to run away from me, which is okay too. You'll notice that like when it's popping, so like the little white highlight is whatever the last price traded is. You'll see it jump quite a bit in between instead of making sort of like a fluid motion. So that's indicative of larger participants, like people trading larger size because their order hits all at once and just jumps to the next tick as they try to get filled. Um, I don't I don't love that, but it's not moving particularly fast. Like we've definitely seen this trade faster in the last month. So I just kind of do this like this is like part of the observation. Like I've had people ask me, if you don't trade pre-opening range, like why do you not just like show up at 9 o'clock? I've done that before and it can work, but then I have to like spend another like 15 or 20 minutes like orienting myself to the exact thing that I'm showing you guys right now. That I'm like, well, how fast are we moving? What's the volatility like? What should my stop be like? Is the depth of market moving really choppy? Are we moving really fluid? Is it really low volume? So the first 30 minutes is like, you know, me hanging out, and seeing what kind of mood the market is in. The person that I learned to trade futures from used to say that, and he was a big advocate of trading one asset. Like if ES is your asset, then just trade ES. Don't be like popping over to this and that. And I know some people have success trading lots of different things. I that really changed my trading. I traded ES for a couple of years. I've only started trading the Nasdaq in about like the last year and change, year and a half. The Nasdaq fits my trading personality a little bit better because I don't feel that I have to hold for as long as I have to hold on ES to get the same points. Like I want in and out very quickly, and the Nasdaq definitely offers that. Including if you guys saw the stream on Monday, I think I took a record fast stop out for like half a second. I was in position before I got stopped. So, but what he used to say was you could show up. He could like show up. He traded ES mostly and could show up and like be like, yeah, I'm not touching that today, right? Because you just get a feel for like what different days are like, if it's in a good mood, if it's in a bad mood, if it's going to be easy to trade, difficult to trade. So, you want to make your life easy to trade. There's some volatility. That was a nice fast ramp from the buyers there. They got through this imbalance level that they put in. Need like a little like shake the Nasdaq, like wake up. Let's do this. Still not looking to take a trade yet, but I'm going to scroll up to this like 34 area and see if they come back down and hold this imbalance area. So pretty quickly doing quite a bit of volume there. I'm like watching the volume profile over here build itself out. So that's encouraging. We've really been missing volume on the Nasdaq. So just because volatility looks like it's definitely picking up. This is 853. That's about a 100-point move there. So I'm probably going to use a 25 to 30 point stop unless this like calms down a little bit. The tricky part is that like I like 3 to 1. So if I'm risking 30, then I need 90 points, which means I would have had to have captured this whole 100-point move. So dealer's choice, I might go back to 3 contracts depending on what the setup is like. Like if a 100-point move up is the size rotation that we're going to do, like as we're already coming back down to this imbalance level, I don't want to have to try to capture, you know, if I'm risking 30 points, then I want 90. I don't want to have to capture 90% of a rotation. That's going to be really hard to do. And buyers got it up there and gave it all back. While this continues to chop around the point of control, let's take a look at the overall market and see what is happening everywhere. All right, so let's take a look at the S&P's top holdings. Intel is leading the charge, as well as Nvidia. Each of those is up 4 and 2.5% respectively. So that is basically what is propping up the NASDAQ. Everything else below it is either flat or red. Meta and Microsoft are all down over 1%. Apple is down not quite 1%. So a lot of bigger tech names not participating in the rally and or are flat. And the rest of the market, most of the other stuff, banks, communication, Disney are all like flat or mildly red. So that's not something that looks great for more upside. Like Nvidia and Intel are not going to be able to carry this all the way up to new highs without some of the other tech names catching a bid. Yeah, there's just like not, it's like kind of a mix. I'm like looking at my own retirement portfolio, not as like a that's necessarily helpful for you guys. I just have a watch list on Thinkorswim, and it's pretty diversified. I'm actually like fairly conservative for as much as I trade markets and trade the Nasdaq. I don't really own any like high beta, high flying type things. So, uh, but I kind of like am able to look at my portfolio and look at like a diverse array from like tech to, more boomer style stocks, as my friend Wags might say. And it's all just like nothing is down a bunch, nothing is up a bunch. It's all kind of flat, which is just choppy. You also see that we're actually like, I haven't noticed these on stream as much lately, probably because the volume has been so low, but you're seeing these delta flip markers, the little diamonds that keep showing up. There was a blue one right before they like sent this back down, and now there's a yellow one. So those are just like aggressive flips from like sellers being in control of the delta, to buyers being in control of the delta, or vice versa. And the reason that we're seeing this flip back and forth so much is indicative of what I was just saying when I was like, we're really choppy. Like we're like big order down all at once, big order up all at once. So that's why you're seeing those pop up more frequently here on this stream. Really creating a very like distinct D shape here in the middle, where most of your volume is concentrated in the middle of this rotation range since we've opened, and then fading towards the edges, also indicative of more chop. So really need, I really don't like the price action on CPI days if we're still trading inside of the CPI candle. So when I say that, it's just this peak high here at 60, sorry, at 960, and the low is at 750. We're just kind of inside of that whole indecision candle. And so I'm more excited if we start to like get below the mid and maybe threaten the low. That could be interesting for a trade depending on how we get there. And I'm definitely interested in like if price can get all the way up to 30.65 and potentially break out. But right now I'm not really seeing, I'm not so hopeful for that as we start to potentially make new opening range lows here. On a higher time frame, we're coming right back to the top edge of value for this week. The week's range is also incredibly tight. You know, if you look at last week's range compared to this week's range, it's just really small. And I'll be here and continue to hang out with you guys, but putting risk on in really tight range, choppy environments, it really doesn't matter, in my opinion, like how good of a trader you are. These are really tricky environments. Like slow up and to the right is not my favorite market, but it's tradable. Same for like slow and down to the right, although we don't typically do slow and down. But this is when it's sideways and it's not very predictable and it's slow and it's grindy. It's just a really easy market to get chopped up in. And I thought CPI would move this more than it has so far. Let's see where everything else is landing in terms of the indexes as well. All right, so the NASDAQ is up 1%. ES is up about 1/3%, and the Dow is exactly flat. I'll probably say this a couple times on stream, but we put our first episode of Rewind the Tape out, which is going to be a new series for us. We released that yesterday, so you can go find that on our YouTube channel. I'll drop a link in the chat here in a minute. That is going to be a weekly series that we do, although it's going to be tricky to do if I don't take any trades because everything's so choppy. But in theory, I'm going to take one trade that I take on the live stream, whether a loss or a winner or whatever it might be, something that's like interesting from an order flow perspective, and we'll break it down. We'll like slow it down. We'll actually replay the the data and the delta as it happens. We're actually recording all of the price action that's happening on the depth of market so we can play that back for you guys. And so I think the one that we did was really interesting, and it kind of gives you some insight into what I'm thinking about when I take a position, what I'm seeing, and I do my best on the live stream to kind of like explain that as it's happening, but I'm still also trying to like put risk on, and so sometimes I'm not able to communicate that as effectively as I am when everything's slowed down and it's the weekend and I can kind of take my time to analyze and show you guys what was going on at that point. So All right, so I dropped that in chat. If the market gets incredibly choppy and terrible, or you guys just don't feel like putting risk on CPI, something to watch or listen to in the background. So this absorption zone that we saw from very early on, like just a couple minutes off the open, that is printed right in the middle here, this like green zone, is kind of starting to be resistant. It's also exactly the point of control. So it's like sitting here at 908. You can see all of the big, there's like a 5 to 8 point range of really big delta in here. So if sellers continue to hold this down, I think we're going to see new lows. We technically set the opening range, didn't even notice because the volatility hasn't really picked up. So I hate that my prediction like might be coming true, but so far we've had some rotations, but we seem to be kind of drifting back into this really choppy behavior that we saw Monday and today, Monday and yesterday. And see our rotations are just starting to get smaller and trading like right below the previous day's high. And they really are holding this like probably like this 2908 908 area like as cleanly as anything right now, but it's also right at the point of control and right in the middle of this like D shape that they've created since we opened. So it doesn't make me very like it's a level that they're trying to hold. And if this was like somewhere outside of value or at least higher up or lower down in the session, it might be something I'd lean against for a trade, but not right in the middle like that. I don't know if you guys have this, but like if you've traded long enough, there's certain like memories about certain days that like kind of stick in your brain. And for me, when I think of CPI, this was back in 2023. I'd have to look back at a chart, but I'm about 90% sure that this session that I'm about to talk about like marked the low of 2023. If not, it was like really, really close. But I think we had a CPI release, and that was the big story during like 2022, 2023 as we like, pulled back from the highs there, that we had a CPI release. It was more bad news, but the market had been going down like pretty consistently. Like every CPI release was like sell off, CPI release, sell off. And it just became so became so sort of predictable, which is usually the first warning sign that it's not going to keep working. And I was walking to work. I lived in New York at the time, and it took me like, I don't know, 20 to 25 minutes to walk to work. And so I would look at my phone as I was like walking in and watch the data release. And, I want to say the NASDAQ was down 2 or 3%. It was not a small move. The market was unhappy about where inflation was at. And like as I'm walking, the market catches a bid, and I got to the office right around when the opening range was getting set. And like by the time I got to the office, we were like closing in on being break even for the session. And I want to say we actually ended the day up like 2 or 3%. It was like a 5 to 6% sort of like round trip move. And I just like that. I traded some of that session, or at least attempted to trade some of that session. It was unbelievable volatility. I don't remember what the actual range was. Like this year, we've done some 1,200, 1,500 point days here on the NASDAQ. But at the time, we were trading at a much lower price. And so I don't remember what 5% was at that time. But it was at the time, the volatility was like, this is unbelievable. I'm pretty sure I lost money trying to touch it because uh, present day me probably wouldn't touch that level of volatility because it just gets to be too hard to manage risk. But right back up to this absorption level right now. But whenever we have a CPI day, for some reason, I can still like remember walking and looking at my phone being like, holy shit. Fortunately, I don't remember that day because I lost a bunch of money. I just remember the price action being absolutely insane. Now, see, this level that they've held here at 2908 would be something that I would consider trying to fade off of because it's really struggled to get back above it here in the last like 15 to 20 minutes. But location matters, and I'm not going to trade it right in the middle. So got the opening range low break and then did an immediate rebid. So as I've said before, the opening range for like the 30-minute opening range, there's statistics that whichever side gets pierced first, typically that side has an edge. So that kind of brings me towards neutral because I would give buyers the edge just being up about 1% on the day, still being having taken out the top of the CPI candle, but taking out the opening range low kind of gives that an extra point against the buyers there. I honestly just like don't care if it goes down or up. I just want it to trade clean, and that is like not what it is doing right now. If you guys are watching and you haven't yet, feel free to hit a like on the stream. That helps us out for getting this live stream distributed. We appreciate you guys hanging out for this chop fest. Big buyer there. I don't know that they got filled though. They flashed for a minute and price kind of bounced away from them. It's like 100 contract buyer there at 906. I don't know if there's a way for me to do it. I'm kind of like thinking, like I just put like a reaction GIF in our members only Discord, just at the frustrated at what the price action is doing right now. But like, I think there are ways. I'm like, my tech code brain is like marinating on how I can add reaction GIFs to the stream itself. I think I might have a way to do it where I can just have a couple set and then just like put them briefly up on screen. Or I could just like act out the reaction gif I just sent to Michael Scott, like where he's like rubbing his eyes in frustration. Um, that's that's my feel and my level of technical analysis right now. Let's see how the price reacts to 36 here, which is this imbalance level that they put in earlier. I'm still not looking to fade this here. It's still just like too much in the middle of everything that's going on. You've seen some sellers stack here though. It's like a 30, there's a 25 lot order here at 34. They just dropped down. So this is like observations from watching the depth of market for a really long time. Uh, if you start to see large orders chase, like let's say, we saw this like 25 lot order. I know it happens really fast if you're not watching, but basically we saw a 25 lot order that showed up here at 34 and they couldn't get filled and price was at like 31 and they chased it down and price moved down again and they chased it down again. When you typically see that, I tend to actually lean against the person who's chasing. So even though price pulls back as it's happening, I tend to lean towards slightly bullish behavior. And the opposite, if buyers are chasing up, just when one side with size is starting to get a little too excited or getting a little nervous about getting filled, um, it makes me feel that like somebody with size is just a bit too confident in what they're doing. So, you know, hasn't played out that way thus far, but that chase behavior probably doesn't matter quite as much when we're in the middle of this range here. But if you're like near the lows and you start to see, seller trying to get filled and can't get filled and they chase it lower and they can't get filled and they chase it lower again, that's usually a good way to have price kind of blow up in their face. I also think it's just like I'm not the one trading 30 contracts, so I'm sure they don't find it amusing at all, but it's kind of funny to watch because I'm like, I thought I was the only one that got nervous about not getting filled and moving my, one or two micros down to try to get filled. But no, someone's doing the same thing with, you know, a bazillion more dollars than I'm trading with. Ugh, this is terrible. I believe we have more data later in the week. Let's take a look at calendar. All right, so we've got jobs tomorrow. Then what's on Friday? Have a Fed speaker tomorrow morning. More Fed speakers. Friday is retail sales and Michigan consumer. So Michigan consumer can definitely bounce around a little bit. But I'm like looking for some type of event that could get us out of this horrible, horrible price action. Yeah. So like when I zoom out and I look at this, this is terrible. This is just not clean rotations. And so what I mean by not clean rotations, obviously one that we're just like, you know, we're saying in this, we're basically just trading back and forth around 29,900 over and over. But also like the rotation highs and lows are taking out. So like this rotation down took out this rotation low, and then this one goes here, and then it's just like unpredictable. Like lows aren't holding, highs aren't holding. It's just, yeah, it's perfectly balanced. it keeps tempting me to want to take this trade because we keep trading underneath this absorption level. I'm apt to take it off my chart so that I don't do that because it's quite possibly the worst place on the entire chart to like be interacting with it right now. I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I like saw somebody who was streaming and he was like playing a video game instead of watching the market, and I was like, that's weird. Now that I've been streaming for a few weeks and we've had a couple of few sessions like this in a row, I'm like, oh, I get it. It's probably more entertaining to watch me play Flappy Bird than it is for me to be watching these candles trade in the exact same location over and over. Doesn't make for good TV. And I also think this is like really important, capital preservation, but also really important when I like laid out when I first got on stream, when you guys maybe couldn't have heard me, but what I said was I don't like to trade inside of the data drop candle. So like if we get up near the high of it, I'm interested. Like, you got a little rejection when we tested above the high here. This was pre-opening range, so I wasn't going to take that. But I'm more interested up here, or like if we can get above the high, put in a higher low, and then go higher. Or interested if we take out the low, right? Inside of all of this, like this is just one giant consolidation range. Like the market has no direction in here right now. It's waiting for either enough participants or large enough participants to move it in one direction or another. So right now, still inside of the data candle range. So really not interested until we can get up to 960. I'll start to be a little more interested if we can get below the mid. That's not quite to the low, but I think if we get below the session mid, the profile is like so thin to the downside that I might be looking for like, call it if we got below the mid, came back up and retested the edge of value, maybe retested the bottom side of the opening range low and held and started to roll back over. Might be interested to see if we can get down to the low of the data candle, but right now we don't have the volume or the volatility to be moving that far. So, and I knew it. I knew it as soon as I walked in this morning and like looked at my 500 vol chart and was like, huh, because like every once in a while, like I'll let my a lot of times like I'll leave my platform on overnight, like just getting it set up for the stream in the morning. And every once in a while, just because like Rhythmic and or Motive Wave doesn't like that, I'll come in and like every, I don't know, 1 out of like 10 or 15 times, like my data feed will like freeze sometime during the middle of the night. And so I was like, oh, it froze, right? So like that's why we don't have that many volume candles up. And then I like looked closer and I'm like, nope, nope. And that's one of the really nice things that I like about fixed volume charts is that the shape of the chart and the number of candles that are getting printed is like actually information in and of itself. So I don't need to be looking at, you look at enough of the same sort of fixed volume time frame and you can start to be like, we aren't trading a lot of volume right now. Like if I'm like barely zoomed out here in Motive Wave and I can see the whole overnight session as well as the end of yesterday's RTH session, that's usually we're just not we're just not doing a lot of volume, and that's what's lending itself to a bunch of chop. And this level right here that I've talked about a couple times, which is also the point of control, just like some absorption that we saw, this like green zone right in the middle. So when you're looking at a level to potentially trade around, which like I wouldn't trade around this one because it's in the middle, but just for illustrative purposes, you want to be able to see your level hold pretty cleanly. Like this is the NASDAQ, so it's not going to be to the tick. but you don't want to see is a level that like breaks 15 points to the upside, or in this case, this one broke 30 points to the upside, and then it gets 30 points below. Because you can't, there's no place for you to actually lean against, right? Arguably, this one is better, like, but it's still, because we're not trading cleanly inside this zone, you had a 30 to like a 40-point break of this to the upside, and then it held the second time. So like arguably this level down here, which we don't have anything like order flow related, it's just the edge of the RTH session. This is a better hold down here. Like this is maybe like 60 to, yeah, 47. This is like a 13-point range that is down here that we've held once, held again, swept the low, rebid. That's the kind of level that you want to be looking at when you're taking trades. So, because otherwise, if it's like if it's just taking your level and it's just rotating around it, like there's no place for you to put your stop. There's no place for you to, like it's just kind of guesswork. So you need a clean level where buyers or sellers are deciding to step in and actually defend that level within like, whatever your stop risk tolerance is, 10 or 15 points. Or I know some people trade the NASDAQ a lot wider than I do. So, but regardless, even if you're using a wider stop, you don't want to see like this level right here in the middle is like the worst possible rendition of a resistance level, in my opinion. Have we reacted to it cleanly a couple times? Uh-huh. And then we've also reacted not cleanly to it more times than that. So people get sometimes, I think, like really married to their levels, and you got to see how like the market doesn't care about your level. You should only care about your level if the market cares about your level, is how that should go. Because your one or two micros on a prop account isn't changing anybody's idea about what price should do. It's also why I watch the like in Motive Wave, I watch the main contract trades. So we're watching NQ trade, and then when I take trades, it's cross trading over to the micros. That's why I do that, because like I want to see what the people who can actually move the market around are actually doing, and where they're putting on risk and where they're defending price. I assume that most of the micro volume, not all, because, but like most micro volume is probably retail trading. I was actually just thinking, I wonder if like any institutions or anything trade the micros, but I can't imagine why, because like if you start trading actual size, if you're trading like, 40 or 50 micros, like the benefit is really only in that if you're like swing trading or something, like you can kind of like sell chunks of your risk in smaller increments, right? Like if you have 5 NQ, like you have to sell them in like 20% increments, while you could be a little more granular with the micros, but you're also going to pay a ton of fees for if you're doing that regularly. So I can't imagine that they even bother. I think a lot of people like myself probably came into today thinking that, after the last few sessions just being really low volume, that CPI would be something that could, you know, ignite some directional movement. But we're not quite. So like each of the periods that comes out, I don't know who came up with this idea, but the first 30 minutes is A period, the second 30 minutes is B period, so on and so forth down the line. So if B period the price action inside of B period trades inside of 8 period, that's usually indicative of choppy behavior. The market hasn't broken the high, it hasn't broken the opening range low for the first 30 minutes. And so then the market kind of just like settles into that behavior and doesn't really go anywhere. So we didn't quite do that because we did break the opening range low, just barely by like a few points. But, you know, sort of in that realm. Look at all of this delta here, like on the right of my screen for delta volume. That is so much buying. That is so much concentrated buying there. We have an imbalance flagged at the top of it, like here at 36, but that's just a lot of buying that's getting absorbed there. And one of the ways that I kind of think about absorption is if each side sort of has a certain amount of ammo, right? Like if there hadn't been this many sellers here in this like 31 to 40 range, then all of this delta gets used to move price higher, right? But like since there were so many sellers that sat there and absorbed all of that, then you know, less ammo for the buyers to take this higher. If this imbalance level was a little bit higher, like if it was closer to 60, I might be interested in trying to do a reoffer here, but it's still too close to this chop area. This bubble that you're seeing appear here is just that on that push, you had very aggressive buying that actually ended with negative delta at the end of that move. So just kind of indicative that there's a little bit of weakness. Like in a strong up move, you want positive delta kind of all the way through the candle to kind of like, buyers through the entirety of that move are trying to get in. So when you end up with negative delta near the top of the candle, it just means that, kind of ran out of steam there at the top and you're seeing price pull back off of it. And that's kind of this is kind of this almost like delta wall, like this buy delta wall here from like 36 to 31 is just really problematic so far for buyers. It's unfortunate that it's not a little bit higher and it's not further away from the point of control. But I don't want to get short here because I've got to, if I'm going to use a 20-point stop, then I want to try to get 60 points, which is all the way down to the bottom of the range. And we've seen it hold this 900 level multiple times. So I don't want to be a part of that pullback because I assume it's going to hold somewhere before it gets to my target. Oh, there's a oh oh my. Head on a swivel, there's some news there. Don't know what that was or is. Took out the low and then went right back to where it was. Yeah, I don't have actually a new like I don't have a news feed up, so I can't tell you what it is, but if anybody else sees what it is, you're welcome to throw it in chat. We were trading really, really slow and then got a shot of adrenaline to the downside, but then immediately just like sent it right back up to 900. So I don't know what that's doing. That got really angry in a hurry, but my inclination is that that's kind of a nothing burger because price is already back to where it just dropped from. So everybody cared for the algorithms cared about that for about 10 seconds. And you'll see the blue bubble at the bottom is the opposite of what we saw at the top here. So you're seeing the very bottom of that push ended up with uh, positive delta on the push down. But that's too fast to do anything with. Like you can see it on my 500 vol chart, but watching it live was like almost instantaneous. So no idea what that was. If I had to guess, it's probably a tweet, but just ran a bunch of people's stops is what that did. Ran a bunch of stops and then immediate rebid. I was just complaining about it moving slow and then it moves like almost 60 points in like half a second. So somewhere in between, please. I'll check the good old Twitter and see what I can see for news for that. Whatever it is not at the top of my Trump. U.S. has quote total control of Hormuz. Mm-hmm. Describing the U.S. naval blockade as a quote wall of steel. Also claims that Iran's military has been severely weakened. I'm cutting through the extra words that he's using. I'm just giving you the highlights. Iran is no longer the bully of the Middle East. So uh, that's nothing burger. But the algorithms right now are, I think, coded to see anything with Iran, Strait, Hormuz, all of it is just coded to react in case like it's a, you know, a real headline rather than the musings of the president. So got exciting there for just a second, but kind of also like a good rule of thumb. I talked about like, data candles. When you have a news move like this, like if it takes back over half of the drop, the market doesn't care. If it's actual bad news, you're not going to see a bid come and take like the whole move back out usually. Not to say it can't ever happen, but typically. So, I don't really expect this to do too much. Probably just squeezing anybody that tried to get short at the lows. Also, why I don't ever have orders just like hanging out. Like if you've watched me trade before and the market like comes up to my level, maybe I put in an offer, bid, whatever it might be, and it runs away from it by 30 or 40 or 50 points, like I don't get filled, I'll just pull it and I'll wait for it to come back because it matters like how I get filled, not just that I do get filled. So, like even if I'd been watching the opening range low for like a bid, I wouldn't have left it sitting there if we were that far away from it. So they're going to come up to this kind of delta wall again. That's my coined phrase for the stream. But from 36 to 31 is some very, very aggressive buying at size that really hasn't gone anywhere. This actually would have been a nice short trade, but I stand by what I said, which is that without a tweet, I think we would have just chopped around 900. So if you happen to take that short, nice work. I hope you were paying attention to take profit there at the lows because that was incredibly fast. I'm going to put on one more, wrong study. I'm going to put on one more imbalance level. I only have one on right now just to see. Nope, don't care for that one either. Yeah, so the imbalance is like sitting right in the middle too. It's not helpful, so I'm just going to leave it off. Dang, I was really hoping that that was going to be something that was going to move us around and back to the grind. I can't imagine that any algorithms are really like making money in all of this. I just like, I don't know. I feel like this is just like a net losing situation. Like it doesn't go that far, it doesn't hang out for that long, and it was basically instantaneous. So, no idea. Like there's no way to catch that unless you were already in position or you had an order happen to be waiting down here without a stop that was close enough that was going to get taken out. So, but I always wonder when like those things happen. I'm like, is whatever bank is in charge of those algorithms, those like news drop algorithms, like is some guy over there like, oh shit, boss is going to be mad? Or like, are they actually fast enough to like make money in that? I'm going to guess it's the latter. I'm going to guess that they're probably fast enough. Like they initiate the sell move and then like they're already basically like selling with size and then covering like as it's going down as like stops are getting triggered and everything. They're just like picking it back up. But I want to say this was like in 2023, too, maybe a little bit older than that. But there was like a large hedge fund. I don't think it was Citadel, but there was like a large fund that they like turned on their algorithm and it just started like immediately executing. They lost like, can't remember, like however many hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of like 15 minutes before they turned it off. Um, I just would like, I would love to be a fly on the wall when those things happen, you know? I watched some like video on Reddit yesterday, and this like high school was trying to hang up like a brand new scoreboard, like one of the like big, huge video boards. And they were like trying to hang it up in the gym, and they got it like 80% of the way up, and then like one of the like chains that was like bringing it up like broke, and it like swung down, fell, and like shattered into like a million pieces on the ground. And you just hear some guy in the background just go, "Shit." Like it's like it happens so fast and it's so big, there's like nothing you can do about it, but kind of like I don't know, there's something really like real and human about when something like that happens and you're just like, well, now what do we do? And price is just hugging 29,908. Like ultimately I think this is like positive for the buyers. Like the Nasdaq is up 1% on the day. We haven't been able to sell off. You're going along in a tight range, but the longer that this goes on, the longer that we just go sideways and we don't actually start to break out, it kind of starts to be, in my opinion, like starts to gravitate in the other direction where, you know, you want to start seeing buyers start to want to push and break this out of this range. And the longer that they take, in my opinion, the less likely that starts to become. So I don't think they're there yet, but they have definitely found some willing sellers to sit here and absorb price. See some bigger sellers stacking in here. There's like a 22, a 12, an 18, and a 12 all stacked in like a 10-point range. Like at this point, what I would actually be looking for, which I just like don't know if that's gonna happen, but would probably be some kind of push up near, I was gonna say a push up near 80 and come back and try and retest this kind of buy wall from the top side back into it. But my concern is that this sits so close to the 2908 level that I feel like that has more magnetism than it does for the level that I would want to see hold. But it's just like too narrow range. There's not anything to do with it in here except don't touch it unless you want to have it remove money from your pocket. I also wonder if the market is reacting to, there were like some headlines in the last like 3 or 4 days that Iran was saying that they weren't going to negotiate with the Trump administration anymore, like the US slash Trump anymore, until he was out of office in 2029. I have no idea if they're going to stick to that. I mean, it's a lot of, you know, what do they call it? Saber rattling from both sides. It's like a war of words more than it is like full on conflict at the moment. But I could see the market not liking that, both like not believing it and also not liking it because all it does is just like extend a long period of uncertainty, right? But I could also see the market being like, that's just Iran trying to like position themselves in some place for negotiation. So, but I don't think it speaks well to like progress being made for a resolution there. And you like won't see me talk politics here on stream for obvious reasons. But I will talk just generally about like kind of what my feel is in terms of like what's going on in different parts of the world and the news, because that's ultimately what kind of like moves the market around. It's like what, you know, creates it. And so that's kind of really the only way that I watch, quote unquote, watch news is, how is the market responding to the overall sort of like geopolitical feel. I am not an expert by any stretch of the imagination in terms of like what's going on in the Middle East or really anywhere else in the world, but I just kind of keep a little like that's happening over there. Let me think about that. Let me know that that's going on. And when we don't have a resolution there, one way or another, that's the that's the real crux of it. Like if the market knew it was like, all right, this conflict is going to last until December 1st, and we're guaranteed 100% that it's going to be done then, which could never happen, but it would trade much differently than it will if it's like, well, next year's midterms or, whatever. Like it just doesn't, they don't, when they don't know, then nobody wants to put risk on in either direction. And you end up with this sloppy mess that's in front of me right now. They've also revised a lot of job reports recently as well. So I'm wondering also if the market really doesn't feel like it has a clear picture of like what's going on with the economy. It's just a lot of things lending itself to chop. All of you are like DMing me angry gifs. I'm sure if I popped into like a bunch of other streams, there would be a bunch of other angry live streamers. If any of you are joining late, feel free to like the stream. I also dropped a link to our most recent and new series, Rewind the Tape, where we break down a trade that I take on the live stream. That's going to be a very hard thing to do this week because I've only taken one trade. The trade you guys saw me take on the live stream And then I wasn't recording, but I scalped like 15 or 20 points at the close yesterday against an imbalance level. But uh, so far, I won't have a trade to actually do that series for next week. So maybe it'll be a bi-weekly series if the price action continues. But feel free to go over and watch that. We just take a trade and break it down in a lot more detail than I do live about why I took it, what was working, what wasn't working, what I saw, all of those kind of things. So if you're interested, go take a look. It's probably a lot more of an interesting watch than what's going on with the NASDAQ right now. And that's not me tooting my own horn about how good the video is and more a commentary on what the price action is like here. I feel like what I feel like whenever the market isn't doing anything and I'm not even like really looking to take any trades, but I'm like here hanging out with you guys is I'm a pretty big sports fan. Grew up in a college town, so love watching college sports, particularly basketball and football. But whenever there's like a football game or a basketball game that just gets to be this like huge blowout where it's like, basketball game, somebody's like up by 30, and yet the game still has like a whole other half, and you get the commentators who have to just like make shit up while they're talking, I'm like, oh, now I understand what's going on. Appreciate your experience a lot more now that I'm feel as if I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, how much fun is it to listen to me talk while the Nasdaq trades in a 45 to 50 point range? No team is winning right now. Everyone is net losing watching this. And like, I want people to come watch the stream. I love hanging out with you guys. This is great. No no bad feelings in that direction. Would always love to. If I'm gonna watch it, I'd rather be watching it with you guys here than watching it by myself. But this is the worst price action since yesterday. I feel like the very end of earnings week, like that Friday where we had like Apple and Microsoft report, I feel like that was like the last, like after that, we had that like permabid move, this like up move that really didn't give much look in terms of getting in. We got one pullback, and since then it's just been horrible. Basically, since like the 5th of August, I had like a pullback and then just like traded inside that same range. Just terrible. Just terrible. And the thing to focus on during these times is just capital preservation, both capital and mental preservation. So it is perfectly acceptable to like not get involved with what this is doing. I mean, it is still CPI day, so I wonder if we've seen buyers come up to this wall of delta here multiple times and not able to get through. So at what point does it actually move away from here, or is it like so much volume that it just ends up being like a magnet for the rest of the day? And it's like fine if it's a magnet. I would love to use it as a target, but it needs to get far enough away from it to consider doing that. I'm just curious just because I'm watching and not looking to take a trade. Do any of you do any of you copy trade and or use any copy traders? I don't, and I haven't really even tried any of them. I think I tried one time at something and it was a hot mess, and so I just left it alone. But I'm curious. Um, I've had a couple of like brands reach out to us directly to like, be a supporting partner or like promote their copy trading. So I'm just like, I'm always very like, I look into them if I don't recognize the name because, you know, if Ninja Trader wants to come and sponsor us, like I know who Ninja Trader is. If it's like a copy trading thing that I haven't heard of, then I'm a little more wary of what they're having. Like I had a prop firm reach out to us maybe like a month ago, and they were like offering not like a ton of money, but like a notable amount of money to like sponsor for us to like make sponsored content for them. And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. It's a prop firm I'd never heard of before. It was like the website had been created like 4 days before they reached out to me. None of their links worked on the website. They said that their Discord had like 5,000 people in it or something. And I got to their Discord and it had like 200 people in it. And none of it, there were no messages posted anywhere. I was like, all right, I see what's going on here. So I was just curious. If you're in our Discord or you're listening here, feel free to let me know if you're using any copy traders. I don't want to put the name of the one that reached out to us in here until I've been able to do my due diligence on it, but just want to see if there's crossover for that name because it wasn't one that I had heard of before. Because I don't want to I don't want to advertise things that are bad. I don't want to advertise things to you guys if I haven't vetted it myself, or if at least it's not a like sort of known entity, right? Like I don't need to vet Ninja Trader for you. I don't need to vet Rhythmic for you. But if it's somebody that I've never heard of and I'm in the trading space, probably means it's a little on the small side. And I don't want people getting like, I don't want people getting hurt by a bad copy trader just because they reached out to us to sponsor. So I feel like a lot of these streams get like sponsored by, they have like affiliate stuff for like Apex and Top Step and stuff. Might be something that like we look at some point, but it really has to be something that like I like and believe in is a good product. Like if Motive Wave wanted to reach out or Ninja Trader wanted to reach out, I'd be like apt to do that. Um, Lucid Trading, we've also had a lot of good experience with them. That's the eval that I'm trading right now. But we've only been doing our live stream for about not even 2 months now, so not in any rush to grab any of those things or overcomplicate things. Like I really only want to, if they're like going to give us discounts and things that we can pass on to you guys and it's something that's really good, we'll definitely look at doing that. I just don't want to like, you know, the first thing that comes into my inbox. I don't want to like, you know, hey, Kinetic Trades, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate you saying hi. I think the live trading community is like really robust on YouTube. It's like really incredible. Like was doing some, sort of like research when I first was getting into this and how are we going to set it up and what's the format. And there's just so many. Like there's just so many like cool communities. It's really kind of wild. I never really I've done a lot of Discord stuff and like chats while I'm trading. That's been something I've done for years and made a lot of really good friends doing that. But I just was never really part of like a live streaming community. And it's like really awesome to see like there's so many uh like popping into one will have like 200, and then popping into another has like 2000. And it's just, there's an incredible number of people. Retail trading has really exploded in the last 10 or 15 years. So cool to see that. Appreciate people swinging by and popping in and out of live streams to say hey. Also, I imagine there's more people doing that right now, like popping around to be like, is anybody doing anything with this? Probably not if they're smart. And I think that there's definitely some live streams out there that people like, trade for entertainment, in the sense that like they're going to put on a trade, and either whether they're sim trading or they just kind of like trading really small size or whatever it is, just to kind of like, juice the excitement. But I'm trading my own capital here, or at least trading my own, eval accounts or funded accounts right now, trying to get through an eval account. But, uh, it's capital that I care about. So I'm not just going to take trades just for the sake of taking trades. Also, I don't think that's like abundantly helpful for anyone watching. If you're like watching and trying to like learn how to trade, like me just taking tiny little scalps for no reason it's not gonna help me, and it's probably definitely not gonna help you. So just in more like talking about not trading cleanly, like we had the Trump tweet that did this. It made new lows. They took out the top of where the market was before that tweet happened, and now we're drifting back towards the low of it. So, and the reason I say that that's like choppy without it just being obvious is like, if I see some type of data drop and the market can't take most of it back and then rolls over and takes out the low, I'm like, oh, great, I can think about joining the sell team. When they take out the high of the data, or will this like news drop, that makes me want to like join the buy team. But now they want to try to take out both, and I'm just like, ugh. The one tradable area that I still probably wouldn't have touched just because of where it was in the profile is this delta wall from like 36 to 31, maybe even a little bit lower. You can see, just like looking on the right side of my chart, that there's just so much blue in here, so much blue at size. There's multiple hundred, over 100 contracts traded at this price. So I think most of you that are here are familiar with Delta. If you're not, Delta is pretty straightforward. Basically, if a buyer has to cross the spread, so if they're trying to buy, if price is sitting here offering 36 and someone buys 36, that's positive delta. If there's a buyer, hold on, let me go. This is easier to explain when price is here. So anybody that's below down here and price sells down into it, that's negative delta. So delta volume just keeps track of each of those transactions at a given price. So like here where it says negative 59 at 53 and a quarter, now negative 61 and 3, like more people have sold into that price than have bought that price from underneath it. So in the midst of like looking at all these tiny little digits, you don't really probably need to care, you know, unless you're like looking at a low and you want to see like, you want to see if you're trying to like buy a low and price is coming back and it like makes this kind of long wick. Typically what you'll see is like lower delta numbers towards the bottom of that candle, as like the selling kind of like tapers off towards the end. So that's one area to look for smaller numbers, but you don't really want to pay attention to smaller numbers in the midst of like a choppy range. It's just noise. But bigger numbers that stick out, particularly bigger numbers that stick out in space. And what I mean by that is like this delta wall tells you something, but it's a little like chaotic in terms of like exactly where it's going to hold. It's definitely like an area rather than a specific price. So if you've watched the stream before, you'll know that like I really like to trade against some of these imbalances. The reason that I'm not looking at some of these is because they're just too much inside of the day's value area. So I'll probably be here for like another like 45 minutes or so. If we haven't broken out of this chop range by then, I'm just probably will turn it off for the day. But we'll hang out for a bit longer. This is like multiple times they've got it below the opening range low. They have yet to be able to hold it down there, but slowly drifting towards the lower part of the RTH range. But like, let me just draw over here real quick, which I barely ever do this in Motive Wave, but here's, I have to extend this in both directions. Extend left. Okay, so like that is, I think I can just copy this. Okay. So like those lines that I just drew there, which I'm only going to leave up for just a minute, but like that's the data candle, like that's the actual CPI drop, like the high and the low. And we poked our heads out of it in pre-market, and then we poked our heads out of it like about 10 minutes before the 30-minute opening range got set. And otherwise, we're just trading inside of it. So I'm not super excited because it's just kind of indicative that like if the if price hasn't broken in one direction or another, it's just it either doesn't have the volume to do it, doesn't care to have the participants. Nobody feels strongly convicted about where they think price is going to go, and so the drift continues. There's an awful lot of buying from this delta wall up here that is underwater right now, but nobody seems to be panicking. I know that if I had bought 233 contracts and price was now 60 points away from me, I would be panicking. I would be beyond stopped out trading NQ. So, but nobody seems to want to initiate in one direction or another. Has anybody touched any single stock trading futures? I feel like I keep getting like emails from like NinjaTrader and other firms being like single stock futures. And then I looked at Nvidia's the other day and they traded like 45 contracts the whole day. I know the CME was looking at like rolling those out and they've been hyping it for a little while, but I don't know who's doing their marketing, but it's yeah. Yeah, those are dangerous products to trade right now if they're doing 60 contracts of volume. But I don't know if anybody, I know there's some people that were like, including myself, that was like excited about seeing how those were going to trade, and it may just take them some time. It may just take them some time to catch volume, but because ScalperIQ, the studies that you see up here right now only work on futures because it's a centralized exchange. So like all the buying, all the selling, all the delta, all that data goes through one exchange. And for stocks, there's multiple exchanges, there's dark pools, there's all sorts of stuff. So the volume ends up getting split across a whole bunch of exchanges. So the delta picture is incredibly muddy and really doesn't make very much sense in the same way that it does on futures. So my hope is that if you can have single stock futures on like Tesla, Google, Apple, Nvidia, that type of thing, that maybe ScalperIQ would like be a really helpful tool. ScalperIQ is not going to be a helpful tool with 60 contracts traded, so it may just take some time for traders to move over there. Like, who wants to be the first person to be trading in the 60 contract volume? Like, nobody does, but that would be my hope, is that they would actually get popular, because it would allow us to then, you know, open up our tool set to people who are more inclined to trade stocks than just trading futures. But looks like it's going to take some time. Come on, NQ, don't go back up. Just pick a direction. I think I talked about this on Monday, but like sometimes these, where we do tons of volume like this, like ends up sort of being resistance when price is at it, and then it ends up sort of being a magnet when price is far away from it. So seeing kind of this gravitational pull back up towards that level. This is pretty wild for a CPI day. I felt like I kind of understood the like low volume grind going into CPI. The market just like wanting to get a little more information before it picks a direction. But I'm pretty surprised that we came out and are just doing what we're doing right now. And I'm just like, I took the one stop out on stream on Monday with you guys, and then I took a really small scalp at the close yesterday. There was like an imbalance level, and I have an eval account that's on my NinjaTrader. It's a CQG eval account that I've was one that got really close to the whatever the final stop loss is, and I've slowly resurrected it. And now it has like, I think like a $400 or $500 cushion. It's a 25K account. So I trade that one sometimes if I'm just looking for like really small scalps. So I think I got like 15 or 20 points, and that was all the market had to offer. yesterday. And this current 50K eval that I've been trading, that I started I think last Friday with you guys, uh, is going to take a really long time if the market is going to trade like this, because I just won't touch it when it's like sitting inside a value like this. I don't have like a hard and fast rule about like no trades inside of value ever, but like when it's trading like this and it's inside of value, that's like absolutely not. Because I have no idea where this wants to go. Like it's to me just as likely that we drift down and take out the low of this like tweet candle. I hate that I even have to say tweet candle, but like take out the low here as it is for us to drift back up to this delta wall. So I'm not going to put on risk when it's a coin flip. I'm going to check on the S&Ps. I'm sure it hasn't moved hardly at all, but I'll check on the S&P's top 500 holdings. Or sorry, the S&P's top holdings, not its all 500 of its holdings. Yeah, not much has changed. Intel and Nvidia still up 2 and 3%. Microsoft, Meta, Amazon are on the downside 1 or 2%. I don't know if any of you have a similar watch list like that, but I have it, and it just, I think probably because I've been doing it for so long, but it helps me kind of like orient to like what the mega caps are doing is probably what the Nasdaq is doing. So, you know, when like two large tech names are up a bunch and the other ones are all down, balance. Nvidia is actually not that far off its all-time high again. It's trading at like about 224, and all-time high for that is like 236 and a half. It's a really nice bounce off of its 200-day moving average in the last couple weeks. I feel like Intel has somehow become one of the more like popular like day trading stocks now. Like it's just doing an unbelievable amount of volume and volatility in that name. It used to be the most boring of all the tech names, until uh basically like that thing gapped down really hard in 2024, went sideways forever. And then I think the original pop was that the US government said they were going to like take a position in it, and that was like the start of the rally. And then like early in April of this year, it caught a bid at like 40, made new highs at 142. Like that's an incredible move for a stock like that. So I used to like not pay attention to like what Intel was doing at all, but now Intel actually seems to drive, like has a pulls up the Nasdaq more than it used to. Like Nvidia used to be the driver, and I feel like Intel has kind of started to take. I mean, Nvidia is up today too, but I feel like the Nasdaq has been responding to Intel more in recent times. Microsoft was up over 500 earlier, like maybe at the beginning of this week, now giving some of it back, but that had a really nice move off of its 200 weekly MA. It traded around it for a while and then had earnings and bounced right off of it. You know the Nasdaq is trading slow when I'm talking about stocks because I don't trade stocks, but I do watch them to kind of get an overall sense of like where tech is at. Makes me wonder where like SanDisk is at right now because that's another. Right, so SanDisk is up almost 9% today. That was one of the names that got hit really hard during that hedge fund, the tech hedge fund that blew up. I think SanDisk was one of their holdings. So seeing like an aggressive flip back over from buy to sell delta. That's what that little diamond marker is there, but just doesn't want to go anywhere. And I'm going to go off stream for just a second, guys. Stream's still going to be up. I'm just going to go off camera for just a second. And right where I left it. I don't think it moved. I think it was trading at 48 when I left, and it's trading at 48 again. Just hanging out here at the opening range low. Just flipping down here to see how this is trading, which I pretty much already know, but at this point, I think it even becomes hard to, like, if we actually manage to break range and sell, I still think probably at that point the better move is to like let the selling finish and put in some kind of level to trade off of and try to trade it back up into the range, because there's been so much volume done that I think it'd probably just have kind of a magnetic effect. But so far we can't even sell off. So far the only exciting moment was like for 30 seconds when Trump tweeted about Iran and the market decided it did not care. It's very much a, like when they talk about a D-shaped profile, that's what this is. So if you think of like my profile is technically on the wrong side to do this properly, but it's a capital D. Mine's just backwards, but it makes like tapers towards the edges. So by technical definition, if you're including the overnight volume, they might not call this, they might call this a P-shaped profile, but I only care about really what it's doing during RTH. I just keep the overnight volume profile up as habit. So has anybody else taken any trades? Is it just me that's just sitting on my hands, or is it everybody sitting on their hands? I know everyone trades different, so maybe somebody's having a great time in all of this. I'm not sure. If you're new or you haven't been on the stream before, feel free to say hi and chat. Also, our Discord is free to join, so you're welcome to come hang out there as well. There's some absorption getting flagged there. Still not super interested in trading in this area, but let's see what price does here. And for the colors that I have up right now, if it's green, then it means that it's sellers that are getting absorbed there. So flagged a little absorption over the last few candles that it flagged, but the steady is still, this is our excess levels. This one isn't public yet. I'm still watching it trade for a few more weeks to kind of both iron out any bugs as well as see if the market actually responds to those levels. We do some back testing to see like if, the tools that we're putting out, if the market reacts to those levels more than it reacts to other levels. But it's since all of our tools are used in discretionary ways, I find that it's just better to like actually observe them in live market conditions. Then I can like, as an intraday trader myself, I can be like, yes, this is showing me useful things, or the market is responding to those areas better than like a 2 year long back test can really show, because most of the time over a couple of years of data, um, there's going to be a break of the bottom of the tweet candle. Getting close to the session mid here. Like 813 is the session mid. See if we can get any movement at all. And again, positive delta on a push down. So just a weak attempt by sellers there. Really just kind of probably ran some stops underneath that candle and now looking to climb back up again. Just turning that one off. It's also just kind of in range there. They're getting some seller absorption happening in this area. That's a bit more interesting to me. Take a look at this price. Opening range low is at 53. And this is flagging right below it. See if we can get a test. You've seen some sellers start to stack in this area too. Let's see if they can hold it. So opening range low is 853. Let's see if they can hold it underneath there and then get back underneath this imbalance level that's right here at like 47. Potentially try to short this. Would look for the mid is what I would look for as a first place to probably move my stop to break even. So that's a pop back into the opening range. The top of this absorption is like 47, 48-ish. My stop would be 68. I want to see them get back under 48 here. I want to see like 43 to 40 and then come back up to 48. Don't like it holding above that level right now. Seeing some more sellers stack a little bit higher. You see a 12 and a 32 up there. All right, back underneath that level a little bit. All right, offer is at 48. We're going to see if we can get this back down closer to the mid. Just trading 2 contracts. I don't have a ton of conviction with how this has been trading, but we're holding beneath the opening range low right now. So just want to see if sellers can continue to catch some of this drift lower. So we'll move stop to break even if we break below the mid. Otherwise, we'll just take the stop out. This is actually 1 contract smaller size than what I was trading. I was trading 3. And I sized down this morning just in case of volatility for CPI. I could probably be trading 3 right now, but the price action is so stinky that I'm just going to stick to 2. Having some sellers step in there right at the edge of value. Stop will go to break even at 813. Didn't quite get to the session mid and already coming back up. And I'm gonna come all the way back to break even, looks like. Pretty small position risk here, really. I think if we can get below the mid, things open up a little bit. Like you have this very flat profile from the very low volume flat profile from the overnight. So just want to like expose myself to potential downside there without risking very much. So if it gets the opening range low is 53, 853, and our stop is at 68. So like if it gets 15 to 20 points back inside the opening range, we'll just stop out and assume it's gonna drift its way back up. Multiple tests down here of this exact same price at 18. Can't break it yet. The very obvious target if we start to trade below the mid is the bottom of the CPI candle. But when they break below the mid and see if they can get below this 18 level that someone keeps buying, need to see what the momentum is like at that point. I do think this has a chance to start to accelerate if we go much lower, which is why I'm short right now, is for some of that potential acceleration. But thus far, we just have buyers, passive buyers, just sitting at like 820-ish. They're just holding this up. gonna come back up to my entry price again. So far we got about like 30-ish points in our favor, but I'm risking 20, so like it's not even close to where I would have wanted to take that off. So just kind of rotating back up into this 48 to 50 area where we're short from. Still getting some sell reactions off of basically exactly where I'm short, which I like that part. But I would like for this to start moving down sooner. The longer that it hangs out here at the bottom of the edge of value, I think the chance of it trying to like drift back up towards the point of control, back up to like 29,900, starts to become more likely. Trade through my stop. I'm just looking to see what we're trying to hold here on a higher time frame, just kind of like some of these previous tops from earlier in the week. If you happen to watch our Rewind the Tape episode that we released yesterday, where I break down trades in greater detail, I talked about having like supportive participants as well as initiative participants. And in this case, Right now, I have supportive participants that are sellers that are passively sitting here defending my entry area for the moment, but I don't have enough active participants. I don't have enough active sellers willing to push this lower off this level yet. And if I don't get active participants here soon, I'm going to find myself stopped out. Still a decent trade though. I think the risk if we break below the session mid opens up a lot more downside to get near the low of the CPI candle, but at the moment just not enough aggressive sellers to send this lower. We got about like 20 to 30 points in my favor, but yeah, gonna see an aggressive flip over to the buy side there. They'll probably come get my stop, but I try not to like, once I'm in position, I try not to like evaluate whether I should still be in that position. Like I've already done my analysis, I put my risk on, I want to see what happens here. And ultimately, I'm only risking, I have one contract, or sorry, two contracts on when I typically trade three. So this is already a low risk just because the price action has been so bad today. So just going to try to trade off of this, some of this seller absorption that's happening, or sorry, buyer absorption that's happening underneath the opening range low. I just find that if I start trying to like talk myself out of why I'm in position while I'm already in position, that I will like I already did my analysis, and sure things can change after a while, but I find that if I start like talking myself out of like, oh, now it's back to break even, or now it went slightly red, like I said I was going to move my stop to break even if it got below the session mid, and it didn't get there, so I'm still in the trade. Still finding sellers right above our entry price right now. So they defended the opening range low there on NQ about as clean as they have so far. Seeing pace of trade start to pick up a little bit here too. Starting to speed up just a little bit, which is probably helpful for us. But I think the things that are working for us is this absorption level that we're leaning against, and that we're below the opening range low, and that I think the session mid has started to get a little overworked here. I've had multiple tests without flushing it. Those things are all working in our favor. The thing that's not working in our favor is the price action has been really choppy and consolidation like and not trending. And there's so much volume done up here that it becomes kind of a magnet. So I think that's why price is having a hard time selling off here. But I want to expose myself to potentially breaking the session mid and going down towards the low of the CPI candle. But right now we don't have enough volume or volatility to be doing either one of those things. So they are determinedly holding the edge of value here right at like 29. It's like right where you see the blue transitioning to the yellow in the volume profile. So slow, choppy. I've said it multiple times on stream before, and I'll say it again. I really don't like being in position for long periods of time. So, like, I'm not uncomfortable with the amount of risk that I have on, but I get antsy when I'm in position, and so the longer that I'm in position, the antsier that I get. Some very determined buyers here at 30, which are not helping my cause. See that ES took out its CPI candle low. Did the Dow do it as well? Is the NASDAQ the only one holding it up? Yep. And back up to our entry price again, tagged it exactly, or tagged the bottom of that imbalance level exactly. I think they're going to come find my stop. It's kind of a little swarm of sellers here at 60, but if they get through that, yeah. Sellers kind of reloading in this 60-ish area. You see the 13, 13, 12. So the thing about running like a tight stop like this is they can't go much further. They're going to stop me out even if their sellers are stepping in a little bit, but it's another rejection back inside the opening range for the Nasdaq, just barely. Still can't get in there. Still finding a few active sellers right above 50, but there's also a bunch of people buying right above 50, so we're just kind of violently chopping here in like an 8-point range. Can't believe I have to say the words 8-point range. I like that sellers are defending inside the opening range on NQ for my position. I don't like that they're holding above the... Hi, welcome in. Is that Henny? Nice to see you in chat. I don't like that they're holding above, not just because my position is slightly red, but like I don't like them holding above that buyer absorption now. They're kind of using the thing that we were using as resistance. They're kind of using as support now. So would like to see them back under 45 here soonish. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of one of those like break that level to the upside and then retest and hold and then go back higher and take my stop. But it's really not doing anything right now, to be honest with you. Very indicative of today's price action that I'm basically been short for, when did I get, I got in here, 10:37. I've been short for half an hour and we're sitting at break even. So the chop continues. But see, I don't like, for my own position here, I don't like that reaction. Like they tagged the level that we're we were using as resistance to be short off of, and they just tagged it and rebid it pretty aggressively. So yeah, that might get my stop there. And yeah, and that's why I was saying I wanted to see that back under 45 pretty soon because this was the danger of the other side of that happening. Oh my gosh, just like stop me out and put me out of my misery here or go back down, one of the two. And there we go. Yeah, so worked for a little bit. I think we got 20 or 30 points in our favor before that decided to go back up. So the nasty, nasty price action kind of continues, and now we're kind of into lunchtime. I would have to wait for 46, the same plot spot we were in. I'd have to wait for that to reoffer again. I do think there's a chance that that happens here, that this is kind of a pop. Like they really held this level really cleanly. And sometimes when that happens, um, price needs kind of like a quote running start, you know, before it ultimately comes down and breaks this level. So I'm going to watch it here for like another 20-ish minutes and see if we can get back below that level. And then I would be interested in taking the same trade again, but I don't have much interest in touching it where it's at right now. Also, if you're new to the stream, welcome in. Nice to have you here. Feel free to hit the like button. If you're curious about some of the studies that you see on the chart, you can join our Discord. There's a link in the description. It's free to join. Nice to have you all here. It's been a very, very choppy session so far. I don't expect that the chop really gets any better as we head into lunchtime. Um, that was the first trade that we put on today and really just looked at we broke the bottom of this candle that came from a Trump tweet earlier and held it, and then we held the opening range low and put in this buyer absorption. So buyers are really getting absorbed on the way back up here, and so we leaned against that. We were a part of this move. We got like I guess 30 points in the money. And I was looking to put my stop at break even if we got below the session mid, and we just never got there. So took a small stop. Typically, I'm trading on the account that I'm using right now. I typically trade with 3 M and Q, but that was only with 2, so it was even a smaller loss than usual. And I just sized down because uh, I really just sized down because I thought CPI would be a lot more volatile, and it really hasn't been that volatile. It's been really, really choppy. So all that to say is I took a smaller stop than I even normally would there. So 'tis but a scratch, as they say. So some of that thesis was I'll be able to, that might actually be a really good trade too, even though it was a losing trade, but a good trade to look at for our Rewind the Tape series for this week. If you haven't watched our one from this week, there's a link in chat to be able to go look at that. But this one might be a good one to review because there was a lot of like seller stacking activity happening here, which is why I got short. Ultimately, we just didn't have enough. They didn't have enough oomph down here at the lows to get it, but it's definitely a trade that I would take again. Also, the other part of that that was part of the picture is that ES and the Dow have both taken out their CPI, the low of their CPI candle, and the NASDAQ is the only one that has not. So was really like not looking to take profit at the session mid, was going to move my stop to break even, and then potentially look for, you know, 750-ish where the low of the NASDAQ CPI candle is, which, would have been about 100-point move. So I was really risking 20 points to try to make, 180 to 100 or something like that. So would definitely take that trade again. Just didn't work this time. Also, if you're new to trading, keep it tattooed on your forearm that losing days are normal. And just your job as a trader is to keep those losing days as small as possible and to make sure that when you're putting on risk, like I just did, that that your reward looks the place that you think price is going to go is a lot further away from than where your stop is. That way, if I take this trade 5 times in a row and it works one of those times, like it pays for all of my losses. So like if I take this trade again, if it happens to reoffer here in the next 20 or 30 minutes and I'm able to get short again and I get, price to come all the way down to the bottom of the CPI candle, like it'll make up for my loss and I'll end up green on the session. So I'm just going to scroll my depth of market to where I would want to be getting short again, which is basically the same price again. Now, I won't just short it if if price comes down and we just knife through here. I need to be able to see it get under this level and trade here for a minute and not be able to get back above 48. I still think there's a pretty good chance that that happens here in a second. So on watch. I also know it's been a choppy stream because I just ran out of water and I tend to drink when I'm like not clicking buttons. I feel like a lot of live streams have like sponsors from uh prop firms and trading platforms and stuff like that. I want to get sponsored by a drink brand. Like I want somebody sending me free delicious beverages while I'm trading. Let's see if we can make that happen. Get sponsored by LaCroix, sponsored by Gatorade. You guys will know when it happens too, because I'll be drinking Gatorade with the label facing towards you. I went and watched the new Spider-Man over the weekend. It was really good. If you haven't seen it, would recommend. It was a really entertaining watch. Actually, like a decent movie. Just like I sometimes go watch Marvel movies because I'm like, all right, it's kind of like junk food, right? Like you kind of know what's going to happen. But it was actually a good movie. Special effects were unbelievable. Storyline was good. But one of the things that I noticed, and even my friend who doesn't work in advertising noticed, he was like, the product placement in that movie was like so ostentatious. Like there was like so many like make sure that the label that, like he's like ordering Little Caesars pizza and the logo is perfectly pointed towards the camera. He's like going to wash dishes and there's like palm olive sitting on there. Like it was very like I see what you guys are doing here, and I understand that you're trying to sort of ground this movie in reality, but calm yourself on shoving your product placement down my throat while I'm trying to watch a film. So if you guys watch that now, you'll be thinking about it. Kind of seeing if this is like one last little hoorah for the buyers here. Had lower high, lower high, lower high, TBD. First place to look for is to see if they can get it back below the opening range low. Because I also know that if I'm trading this from the long side, I would be looking for this to get back above the point of control and back above the previous day's high. That would be like my long target. And right now they didn't get there. So I would assume there's a lot of people that are long that are still in position. And if we start to get back below the opening range low and we get back below this absorption level, that we might start to get some selling pressure back to the downside. Also, I think another good rule of thumb, if you're like not sure like how much you should be risking in terms of like your stops or how many micros you're trading, or if you're trading one micro, etc., is like I really didn't care if it stopped me out. Like obviously I would prefer that it goes and, makes me more points. Prefer not to lose points, obviously. But the risk that I had on was like for me so small versus the reward that was potential that like I don't really care if it stops me out. And I think that's when you know that you're trading like the right size and the right like number of points risk per trade, because then, you know, I think when you're trading too much, you get nervous, you move stops around, you know, you maybe exit the position as soon as it starts to trade against you. Like you shouldn't be feeling anxiety when you're in position. If you're feeling anxiety when you're in position, you're probably trading too much size or risking too much on a dollar amount, even on a single micro. So, all right, I'm giving this a cutoff. I'm giving it 10 minutes. If it's not back below 40 or back below this absorption level in 10 minutes, I'm just gonna call it for the day. And right now we're headed the other direction, so if we're able to get it back below the opening range low in the next 10 minutes or so, back below this like back down to where I was short again to possibly take another position, then I'll hang out. If I take position, I'll hang out until I can take profit or get stopped again. But there's just not anything for me to do with it up in this area. The Nasdaq is the outlier for the only one of the indexes that hasn't taken out the low of its CPI candle. So I don't really, to be honest, like I don't really know what that implies. I guess it implies slightly more strength in the Nasdaq, but based on the actual price action that we've seen, I don't think we've seen strength out of the Nasdaq so far. I guess less weakness than the other two indexes would be the way to put that. I don't know if you guys are this way, but I'm always happy when if it's gonna take my stop, I want it to take my stop by like 15 or 20 or 30. Like I want to be like really wrong. I hate when it takes like my stop by like a point or two and then just like hangs out there and then starts to roll back over. That's the kind of stuff that will start to frustrate me after a while. But in this case, like it got almost 20 points past my stop, so wrong enough to not still be in it. Yeah, ES and the Dow look a lot weaker than the Nasdaq does right now, but it's like pretty wild. Like I was just looking through some of the larger holdings in the Nasdaq, and like Intel's chart is like almost exactly in Q's chart. So it's really Nvidia and Intel that are holding this up. I saw that like SanDisk is still up at like 8 or 10%. So some of the peripheral AI names are holding this up, but getting a little bit of selling here. They need momentum to break that low. They did just shift the point of control down to right where it's at right now at 73. Granted, doesn't really mean too much because like the volume here is like almost exactly equal to where it was. It's just like the point of control is exactly where the most volume has been traded, so it went a few contracts above where it was originally at like 918 or so. I really do like the idea of the NASDAQ going and getting the low of its CPI candle, since it's the only index that hasn't, but like that's kind of a known, at least for me, that's a thing that I will look at for trading. So, because a lot of times the indexes all like to try to move somewhat relative to each other. So if one of them is the outlier and you're still getting selling pressure, like that becomes kind of an obvious target for the NASDAQ. But it also means that if you're shorting the one that's stronger for the day, like that's not always ideal either. But mostly what's not ideal is this price action. That's what's not ideal. And the reason that like, I mean, I was already short, so I wouldn't have been looking to like reverse that quickly, but I really wasn't looking for any type of long. Like I figured we would find some resistance back up here. So there were more points in my mind to the downside than there were to the upside. So that's why I was short. Here comes some sellers. Pretty aggressive sellers too. They're going to give me another look at this price right at the point where I said I was going to end the stream if they weren't below the opening range low. Pretty much just not quite all, but gave up most of that breakout. Coming back to the opening range low and trying to hold now. Still waiting for my price. Honestly, it'll probably wait until I'm off stream and then I'll take it and then it will work because that's how those things go. But just giving it a second on this stronger pullback off the previous day's high. Seeing that candle color shift over just a little bit, starting getting some aggression from sellers. It's back outside the opening range low again. Still want to see it trade under 48. Might be real fast though. Like if it gets under 48, I'm going to put in an offer. It'll be the same stop again. It'll be 48 will be the entry, and looking at 68 is the stop. And I kind of talked about this area down here might have needed a little bit of a running start. So they popped price up, retested the previous day's high from the underside, and now rolling back over again. So if we have enough buyers kind of trapped from, maybe wanting to go higher, only getting like if you bought the breakout, but back into the opening range, you only got 53, you only got like 30-ish points. So just going to see if there's any extra folks who are stuck that can provide some sell momentum back to the downside. But still determinedly holding right above the opening range low. All right, guys. I think I'm gonna call it there for myself. Who knows? I might trade this lower if this happens to print later, but this has just been really, really choppy. We took the one attempted short to try to get below the mid for the session. Got about 20 or 30 points in the money before it stopped us out. Really appreciate you guys joining, listening in. We'll be back again on Friday to do it all over again. 8:30 Central Time, 9:30 Eastern. If you haven't had a chance to watch our Rewind the Tape episode, there's a link in chat. You can find it on the main channel for our page as well. If you haven't liked the video yet, feel free to give us a like. And our Discord link is in the description. Come and say hi. Cheers, everyone.